This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 8th edition of the Iowa 911 Communications Council. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll forgo guest introductions since we have people scattered all over, but Carol, could we have a rundown of who's with us on our council?
Sure. Chris Jasper.
I'm here.
Lawrence Hartman. George Griffith. I think George is on, maybe. Mike Bryant. Now, Mike did text me and say he's on, but he's traveling, so he might have bad reception. But.
Okay.
Mark Murphy.
Mark's here.
All right, Tracy Bearden.
Here.
Richard Pierce.
Here.
Rob Dennard.
Here.
Jack D'Angelo.
Here.
Lawrence Hartman, are you on? Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, could I get a motion to approve today's agenda? Pierce will make the motion. Okay,
Murphy, I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Again, same sign. And likewise, could I get a motion to approve the May 11th, 2023 minutes?
So move,
So moved,
Bearden.
Murphy. I'll second then.
Tracy, Mark.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Again, same sign. And motion carries. Blake, do you have a report for us?
I do, and kind of a lot to go over today. All right, so I sent this out a couple weeks ago. It's a meeting that's actually going on right as we speak, so anything we say here will be out of date immediately. But the FCC finally did publish their notice of proposed rulemaking that goes towards items of interest. This was a petition that NASNA sent to the FCC a couple of years ago, and the notice of proposed rulemaking and what they're considering today is that it kind of goes towards authorities and wireline next-gen transition. So at a high level, the notice of proposed rulemaking would require carriers to transmit all 911 calls to a destination point, aggregation point, entry point, whatever you want to call that place, designated by a 911 authority and in IP format upon notification of readiness. So that is sneakily a huge deal as we look at some point needing to decommission the legacy selective routers in the state and replace them. That's kind of a step along our next gen 911 journey. That will be a big deal that who's ever sitting in my position, if it's me or if it's further down the road, will be able to require carriers to move to those destination points, as well as transmit in SIP. There's a number of carriers that are already ready for SIP, but until we get those legacy selective routers decommissioned, it's still in a legacy format. The other big one that's been a topic of discussion within the state of Iowa for a number of years is on wireline cost recovery. For those that need a refresher on that topic, 34A7A clearly outlines the requirements and rules for wireless cost recovery. That's the cost that wireless providers have to get their traffic to that destination point or entry point into the 911 system in the state. 34A7A states that wireless cost recovery will sunset in 2026. At this point, only one carrier remits invoices to the state. We pay wireless cost recovery. Wireline cost recovery is a little bit more of a gray area. So the FCC, through this notice of proposed rulemaking, should they adopt it, tries to clarify that, at least at the federal level. And it would basically say, in the absence of an agreement or a cost recovery mechanism, so either a contract or by state statute, carriers must cover the cost of transmitting 911 calls in the IP formatting to the destination points. Basically, it's making, getting their traffic to the entry point at a cost of doing business. So again, I'm not going to really weigh in on what that means for Iowa. There's a lot of hypotheticals still out there. Again, that meeting is going on literally as we speak. So more to come on that in the future.
Hey,
I'm
Blake,
going to keep, yeah, go ahead.
is that both wireline and wireless?
Wireless, the FCC actually, back in 2001, said that it was a cost of doing business. For whatever reason, on the books in Iowa, we've continued to cover wireless cost recovery. That's something that the state pays. And again, that's what sunsets in 2026. That answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
A couple other things. There's been a lot of discussion. Obviously, we had a flooding issue in the state a couple months ago. NASNA had a learning session a couple of weeks ago at this point. It was put on by an FBI special agent. It was really good. That being said, it doesn't do a whole lot when it's just me and my counterparts hearing the message. So we made that session available through our Google shared space. It is password protected for a reason, but it does kind of give you some tactics, techniques, procedures that you can use locally to help think through and maybe build out your swatting SOPs. There were some additional webinars that this FBI special agent put on those have come and gone, but again, the one that we had is still available on our shared space. A lot of also topics or questions about abandoned calls lately, and I'm going to switch my screen here real quick. This has been a topic nationwide, and we have experienced it as well. There's a number of emails that were flying around over the last couple of weeks on this. We ran some numbers, and Allie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have averaged around a 50% increase over the last year of abandoned calls. Other states have seen higher incidents of abandoned calls. A lot of it can be traced to the security features and safety features that smartphones have rolled out. So iPhone, Android phones kind of have shortcuts to call 911 from your phone. The one that always pops into my mind, because I've accidentally done it, if you hit your sidebar button on your iPhone 5 times, it's going to call 911. Now, it does give you a 5-second countdown, but if it's in your pocket or something, you're not going to notice that. So the volume is on the other side, the power button is on the other side, and you can easily turn up your volume 5 times to call 911 but by hitting the wrong button. So Android has also rolled out a bunch of security features recently as well, and I think that's probably where nationwide we've kind of traced that spike to. That's kind of the timing aligns with Android's features. So we have pushed out a number of resources also on our shared site, but we sent these out over email as well. There's some kind of public-facing documents that you can use or send out. There's also some internal resources if you want to talk somebody through, maybe what they did or how to not do it again. There's also kind of a good discussion nationwide on, should you disable those emergency features on your handset? Most of them can be disabled, but in some cases, they are a good thing. You just have to know that they exist so you don't accidentally use them. So it's kind of like, do you want to turn off the Amber Alerts? Of course you don't, but some people do anyway. So do you want to turn off those emergency features? Probably not. It's probably just good to be aware of them. Any questions on swatting resources or abandoned call information? Jump back into my PowerPoint here.
Blake, is there anything that the state can do? I mean, we're seeing a very large number of hangups now with these new problems.
Yeah, we did some social media. Throughout COVID, we have a fairly large following now on our social media outlets. You're more than welcome to share those. I think Ally designed some little graphics that you can use as well. KCCI did a story a couple weeks ago as well on that. I think they mostly talked to, I think it was Polk County or Des Moines PD, but they asked us a couple questions as well. This is another thing. We did put some of that information in the brochures that we're printing and getting out to everyone. If you're looking at us to do more, we can certainly put our heads together and figure out, what else we could do, a press release or something. But we've done a few things already, a handful of things, but I think it's probably also generated locally. If you share stuff on your Facebook page, probably has pretty good reach too.
And we're trying to do that. It just, and I'm sure I'm not the only agency, but with the short staff and then the larger, we've seen a significant increase in hangups and abandoned calls in the last 5 months.
Yeah,
So we're just trying to figure out a way to take some of the stress off.
Yeah. When Ally ran the numbers, some PSAPs were showing 100% increase. Some were strangely showing a decrease, but not very many. So again, it kind of averaged out to like a 50% increase. And other states are mentioning numbers like 300% increase. So I also know that NENA, National NENA, is looking at this with the cell phone manufacturers as well. Because it is that broad issue, not just related to Iowa.
Right, and I'm just good to hear that. I can tell my staff that it's being looked into because it's creating a lot more work for, I'm sure, everybody.
Yeah, the messaging that we've done around it is, if you do accidentally call 911, obviously stay on the line, say it was an accident, or answer your phone when the dispatchers call back. So we're trying to get that messaging out.
All right, thanks.
All right, moving on the slide, we had a webinar yesterday. It was really just an informational webinar. It's kind of the culmination of years worth of GIS work and all of the grant benchmarking that we've done. We are this month implementing the emergency call routing function with Comtech that's using all of the GIS data. Of course, last year we took kind of the hybrid first step of using a GIS-based MSAG. So again, it was an informational webinar. There's nothing really more that has to be done at the PSAP level. It's really kind of all done behind the scenes. The schedule was posted on that webinar. If you are not able to make it, that was also recorded and posted to our Google Shared site. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. Today, we are doing testing with Illinois on interstate transfers. Of course, I've talked in the past how we have implemented EZUNet to EZUNet transfers with Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska. So Illinois is being tested today at, I believe, Muscatine County and maybe Dubuque County, and then it'll be rolled out to all of them. Perfect, thank you. And then all of the border counties, after today. Next bullet, I was hoping to say that we have 911 to 988 transfers in place at one of the pilot PSAPs. There's a little bit of miscommunication that was supposed to go live this week. The technology works. We know that. There's a little bit of miscommunication, however. So within a week or so, those pilots at Johnson County will be live on those transfers. We have a survey developed to try to gauge attitudes, readiness of kind of next steps and next PSAPs to go live. So again, there's a pilot that consists of 3 PSAPs. It's Johnson County, Muscatine, and Blackhawk County. After that, the survey will kind of help drive next PSAPs to be on board with that transfer, with those transfers. One of the things that the pilot group has really been working on, it's not really the technology is easy, it's the transfer protocol itself, when to transfer, when it might need to come back to 911. So that's a lot of working on that flow chart, those best practices, has been a lot of what the pilot PSAPs and the 988 centers have been working on. That's where a little bit of the miscommunication happened on the go live date. But again, within the next week or so, that will be live in Johnson County. Any questions at all on that slide? I covered a lot. Hearing none. GIS grant information so far, at the end of, what month are we in? At the end of May, we had 93 counties meeting the benchmark. Already in the first week of June, an additional 3 counties have met the benchmark. So in all reality, although it says 93 counties so far, it's actually already 96 counties. Just got that update yesterday from GeoCom. So there's really just 3 more counties that need to make the benchmarks for Q4 to get 100%. And as a reminder, starting the month of July, we are requiring monthly updates. And again, that perfectly aligns with the rollout of ECRF. There were no additional training fund requests received, but as an update, we're still working through to get some of the final numbers. We added printing in some brochures in Spanish, so there's a couple additional costs there to get it translated and to print a handful of extra brochures in Spanish. But that total really is looking like it's going to be just around $5,000 for all of those brochures. And again, that's also sending them out to all of the PSAPs as well. So it's looking like we will end the year with around $42,000 remaining. As a reminder on the process that goes into that, we will just plus up that account to $100,000. So it's not like that $42,000 is really lost. It just kind of gets rolled over, and then we just add the $58,000 into the account for the next fiscal year. That is the end of my portion. Lynn Warren, are you on from Zetron?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Good morning. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, another busy month. LECOM went live yesterday. Upcoming call-taking deployments, we've got Bremer, Cedar Rapids DPS has signed on. They will be supporting the school tip line that was recently rolled out. We also have Harrison County coming up. We've just kicked off a Ringgold CAD RMS JMS deployment, and then also yesterday Floyd County signed up, so we'll be getting them on the schedule. And next slide, please.
Lynn, hey,
Yes.
This is Captain. On your slide, I think you said you had Cedar Rapids. Is it Cedar Falls?
Oh my gosh, yes, my apologies, absolutely. My fingers were on autopilot. Thank you. It is Cedar Falls.
I make a mistake all the time.
We should get that correction made, Blake, before we publish the slides. I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Yes, so this is the slides of where we're at, and next month we'll get Floyd added in there as yellow. Next slide, please. As always, if you're interested in getting our newsletter, just send an email to lynn.warren@zetron.com and I'll get you on the distribution list. And that's it for me.
All right, are there any questions for Lynn? If not, I actually had one more thing that I forgot to add to my slide. Couple things, actually. We are going to be doing another newsletter that'll be coming out either probably next week. One of the things that you'll also see on that I needed to add to my slides was if you were at Iowa NENA, my session was kind of a joint presentation with GeoCom on their critical incident mapping as part of the Governor's School Safety Initiative. I thought that was a really good presentation, and knowing that not everyone can always attend those state conferences, we're going to do a couple more sessions of that learning of the availability with GeoCom. So I sent out the registrations for those webinars. It's like the 27th and 29th of June, is something like that. So look for those registrations in your email if you're interested. Those will also obviously be recorded and posted to our shared site so you can watch afterwards. But if you attended the Iowa NENA conference and watched it, there's probably not a huge need to go through it again. It's really just informational at this point. But if you want to go through it again, watch it again, see what the offering is, you're absolutely more than welcome to. So again, check your email. I sent those out earlier this week.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, moving on. We do not have any training fund requests. Do we have any reports of any of our committees? Well, we'll start with technical advisors. Do we have any technical advisors?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is D'Angelo. I have one item here a recent item from the FCC I'd like to share in regard to back on illegal robocalling. On May 11th, 2023, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, announced its first ever action ordering providers to block traffic from another provider. This is a first. They're finally enforcing some of these illegal providers, but this is the first one they've actually taken action against. With the final determination order, the Enforcement Bureau determined that One Eye Communications, LLC, consistently failed to comply with the FCC's call blocking rules for gateway providers and failed to respond to the Bureau's notification of suspected illegal traffic and initial determination order. One Eye Communications is out of Delaware. This order requires any voice provider immediately downstream from One Eye to block and cease accepting traffic from One Eye no later than June 10th, 2023, this year, from the order. And a little background here in the order. It says, protecting consumers in the United States from the dangers and risks of unwanted and illegal robocalls is the Commission's top consumer protection priority. Many of these calls originate overseas. Gateway providers are U.S.-based intermediate providers that receive calls directly from a foreign originating provider or foreign intermediate provider at its U.S.-based facilities before transmitting the call downstream to another U.S.-based provider. Such providers serve as a critical choke point for reducing the number of illegal calls reaching consumers in the United States. In recognition of this fact, the Commission has adopted the Gateway Provider Order on May 19, 2022. So we continue to have issues with overseas calls coming in, and these gateway providers that are in the U.S., needing to block these calls. So pass that along just for your information. That's all I have this morning.
Okay, thank you. Any other technical advisories? Okay, we'll move on to an update from the Iowa Statewide Interoperability Communication System Board. Ms. Nichols, do you have an update for us?
Sure, thank you very much, Chair. So the big news is that the SafeCom nationwide survey is out. I'm not going to talk too much about that because ECC Myers will remind you more. Please fill it out. We have been doing ISIX coverage testing, and we'll continue with that in Henry County and Blackhawk County this next week. We also took a team to give a presentation to Bremer County, and we'll hope that they will be able to come on to the system soon. Just a reminder that we have decided to focus on in-person meetings quarterly, and those will be February, May, August, and November for the ISIX board, so those members will all be in person at those meetings. I did go to the National Council of SWCS meeting in Colorado, and that was a really beneficial trip for me. I met a lot of my counterparts across the nation and made some plans with Wisconsin and Illinois to work on some exercise based on communications in a tri-state situation, maybe in 2025. We also went to the FirstNet Labs in Boulder and saw lots of their new technology. They showed us a small deployable that you can haul around in the back of a truck and some light detection ranging technologies that will be used in training and probably as next generation 911 capabilities increase. They also demonstrated Band 14 with the overwhelmed system. So that was really interesting and good to meet the people that are doing that work there. We had the COMMEL course in Cedar Rapids a couple weeks ago. 13 students participated and were certified there. It was a really great training because we had numerous states represented, so that was interesting. One of the things that I got out of it, numerous things, but Wisconsin was there and they have a copy of their FOG printed, and we're working on a FOG for Iowa, so I brought a couple of those to share if anybody who's working on that project would be interested in seeing the hard copy. The CompT scheduled in Spencer has not met the minimum registrations. So at this point, that's going to be postponed. There will be some discussion on whether to reschedule and or change a location. Maybe Spencer wasn't the best option for the group. So if anyone has any feedback for me on when would be a better time to hold or better location, and that would help you get your employees registered, I would gladly take that information as we move forward. We will have an Incident Tactical Dispatcher course in Pottawatomie County, October 3rd to the 6th. That holds a maximum of 20 students. So the registration isn't open for that yet, but within the next couple of weeks, look for it, and then I'll get Ms. Sherry Barker and the ACT team to put that on their calendar also, so you can find it. And also an update on our central STR trailer, just for information. It's been deployed for testing in Carroll County as they prepare for RAGBRAI coming up in July. This report came from Luke Erpelding, who is setting that up, and they had some testing with UTAC 42 repeater that's in there, and they had approximately 36 square miles of good to excellent coverage as they tested that. And then yesterday it was used in a tabletop exercise that was successful, and that drill was really successful as part of the OREP process and also in preparation for Carroll County and their overnight RAGBRAI event. That is all I have for the group, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we'll get an update from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. Chris Myers, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. And good morning to the 911 Council and everybody in attendance. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today, but greetings from Kansas City. Lots of big items to take care of this month. Probably the most notable one based on your inboxes is that the SAFECOM nationwide survey is now out for you to take. Emails went out starting about 2 weeks ago now for the SAFECOM nationwide survey, and inside of those emails, there will be a customized link for your agency to take the survey. It is strongly encouraged that you follow through and take that survey. There's a big push to try to hear from a lot of rural states with this survey, so I would encourage you all to take it. On the next slide, one of the reasons why it is important to take the survey, it does help with data-driven decision making. And if you think towards how CISA tries to tailor its programs and services, that is based off of user feedback. A lot of our TA deliveries within CISA come from feedback from agencies like yourself and users like you, where they say, hey, it would be nice if we had this. This SNS data is really helpful for us figuring out what agencies need on a large scale, and then working with that data to produce new training offerings for states that are available at no cost. It also helps bring awareness of capabilities and gaps. This data has been used in congressional hearings to demonstrate the needs of rural areas previously. So again, this data does get a lot of mileage out of it, and it has gone a long ways towards improving communications offerings for local states or rural states like Iowa. So again, please, on the next slide, make your voice heard. Spread the word about the SAFECOM nationwide survey. The big goal is to try to make sure that we have statistically significant results. And the only way to make sure those results are statistically significant is to make sure that your agencies respond to the survey. It does take approximately 30 to 60 minutes to complete, but it is well worth it. I can tell you that we've had some internal discussions already about some of the initial responses coming in and how programs could be tailored based off of those initial responses. So again, the responses are already being looked at as we try to make sure that the offerings we provide to states are current and relevant. So please, again, take the survey. We really want to see what you have to say. Next slide. I do want to go over some other programs we have going on within CISA. You hear us talk about priority telecommunication services fairly routinely. This includes GETS, WPS, and also telecommunications service priority, which is priority restoration. One thing we do from time to time is we'll send testers out into the field to survey cellular networks during large events. And we just did that during the recent Kansas City Super Bowl victory parade. On the slide, you can see a map of the parade route, and most notably where it started and where it ended. So it started up by West 18th Street in Kansas City, and then it proceeded to head south and basically ended at Union Station. Along that route, there's some choke points for where things like infrastructure can go. You can see the path of kind of where our testers were located in the green and yellow arrows, and kind of where they did kind of a starting point and an ending point, and kind of how they circled back. So long story short is that we had testers following the parade route in the middle of the crowd with specific equipment designed to survey the health and usability of cellular networks during the parade. And they were placing test calls with automated equipment that would do both the GET WPS calls, and then a standard consumer call. And on the next slide, you can see some of the data. Now, a caveat with this testing is that we did have some equipment failures during it, so we didn't get a full amount of testing in some areas. However, if you look at this table, and it's arranged by atomized provider, so provider 1, 2, 3, and 4, along with the test times. And then on the columns going down, you'll see a WPS MO CCR. That is a test call where the phone is the originating point, so mobile originating, and then the call completion rate. So what you're seeing here in the first two columns with data, WPS mobile originating and public mobile originating. The public mobile originating call is if you were trying to place a call with standard consumer equipment. The column where it says WPS MO, that is using WPS. So if you look at the call completion rates, especially where we have good data, in some cases during time spans, you would have call completion rates with your standard consumer networks be down around 30%, whereas WPS was 80% or higher. When you look towards the right, where you start getting to, say, the phone was trying to receive a call with mobile terminating points, the numbers aren't quite as stark depending on the time of the test and where the testers were located. But the thing that stands out here the most is that if you're in an area of congestion, WPS does really work. On the next slide, you can see a graph of that data. The unique thing here is that this graph is done by time. So as our testers were closer to the crowd, their call completion rates in some cases were down around 20% or less. As they moved away from the crowd, the commercial network started to recover. But with WPS, you still had an average call completion rate of right around 87%, with a maximum of 100% completion rates and a lower end of around 60%. So what this basically shows is that WPS does work, especially when you're in the middle of a crowd and especially when you're trying to make a phone call. So this data is not often shown publicly. There is a certain amount of scrutiny that is provided to this data as well. We make every effort to try to anonymize the carriers just to make sure that we don't inadvertently call someone out or have this data used inappropriately. So state of Iowa is one of the first agencies, along with states of Kansas, Missouri, and Kansas City, to actually see this test data in a live fire scenario. Again, the moral of the story is WPS works exceedingly well, especially when the cellular networks are really, really taxed. And just for reference, Kansas City does have a denser cellular network than a lot of other areas within Region 7. But when you're flooding those areas with anywhere from 800,000 to 1 million people, you're going to add a lot of load to those cellular networks, and that's where WPS really shines. On the last slide of new stuff for Iowa this month, regional items of note. The big thing I want to point out is that Kansas is still having their Information Technology Service Leader course, June 20th through 23, and that is in Wichita. And if anybody would want to attend that course, please let me know and I will get you in touch with the Kansas SWIC. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, that is all I have for the 911 Council today. I can go ahead and take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, do we have any updates for the 34A Administrative Code or Baseline Knowledge Committees? Okay, I don't think we do. Any legislative issues? Okay. Do we have any information sharing by council members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mark Murphy here. I just want to advise the council, this will be my last meeting as a representative of the Iowa Firefighter Association. I am stepping down from managing the Dubuque 911 Center. My 35 plus years in public safety is catching up to me. I'm taking a different position with the city starting at the end of the month. It's been a pleasure working with all of you for the last 16 years that I've been here on the council. I appreciate everything. 911's done a lot in the last 16 years, and I expect it to keep moving forward. And thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you very much for your service. I wish I could shake your hand, but I know you're busy elsewhere. But thank you very much for all you've done for Iowa and for this council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other information sharing? Okay, I have one thing, just a heads up of what you would see on next month's agenda. There's been some discussion as to whether we could move our meeting back to a beginning time of 9:30 to put a little less space in between the 901 Communications Council and ISICS, maybe to encourage a little bit more in-person attendance. So that will be as new business on our next agenda. So that's just a heads up. We'll be talking about that. Outside of that, any other information sharing? Okay, I don't have any new business or old business or travel requests. Do we have any business from the floor? Anything from inside this room? Okay, hearing none. Anyone have anything out on the phone? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Bearden.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.